Okay, so we are moving order into the green area of the starting file, and this is probably getting to be a lot less comfortable for you guys. So we'll just take it step by step, and I'm going to make these videos really short, and I'm also going to talk slowly. Okay. Now, number 3 over here, complete the pro forma contribution margin income statement for the month of June in the green box. And then we give you a little hint that says on product line income statements such as this, the fixed costs are only listed in the total column. But make sure that you also show the totals for all the other line items. And then finally, calculate the overall weighted average contribution margin percent for the company. Because in order to do multiple product break even, you have to have some way of comparing the sales mix, of using the sales mix of what you're selling, the relative volume of each of your products, that's your sales mix. You have to have some way of incorporating that into an analysis. And so the way that we're going to do it here, there's a couple of different ways that you can do it. If you look at my videos, it shows you how the textbook that I use for managerial accounting has you do it. If you also look at the video where I show you how to do direct calculation of break-even using Excel, that's kind of how I think about it, as just Tammy the analyst. And then here we're going to do it yet a third way. They're all really the same, but we're going to do it by thinking about weighted averages, which you should be familiar with from your quantitative class. So we'll just walk through that. Okay, so first of all, contribution margin income statement. So the first thing you need to remember is what goes into a contribution margin income statement. And whenever you're making a statement, I strongly suggest that you just start on the left-hand side, fill in the account names, and then fill in the values, right? So on a contribution margin income statement, you're going to have sales, and you're going to have variable expenses. And you know what? Let's say less variable expenses, just to keep that clear in our mind. And then we could even maybe indent that a little bit. And then we have contribution margin, which is sales minus variable expenses. And then we could do another less, and this time it's going to be fixed expenses. And then our last line is going to be operating income. And we can, there we go. All right. So you will notice that I've set this up for you, that the products are going to be, everything is going to be calculated here. Our fixed expenses, you know what, this has some calculations in it, so we'll just take these out. Okay, so our sales for product 1, right, remember, this is what we think we're going to be selling, right? So this is our pro forma contribution margin, and he gives us our assumption about what our sales are going to be. And those are, we're going to have 200 launches and 100 treat times. Right, so these are given to us. Okay, so our sales are going to be the 200 times the $10 for the treat time. I'm sorry, for the first product, I guess it wasn't treat time, it was launch it. And the sales for the second product, which is the treat time, is going to be 100 times the $30. So that's our revenue. And then our variable expenses, we pick those up from here. So our variable costs are 4 for the treat time times 200 units. And our variable costs for the treat time are 18 times the 100 units. Contribution margin is just the sales minus the variable expenses, like that. This one we can just drag it over or copy it and paste it. Okay, and then in the total here, so sometimes people want to sort of blindly add things up or scroll things over or whatever, and you don't want to do that. You want to think about what it is that we are being asked to do. I also would note that these two numbers are the same, right? You're selling 200 of these, 100 of these, but because of the way the cost structure is, it gives you the same contribution margin for each, and you know that's just a coincidence. It's not anything to be worried about at all. So there's our two products like that. We can go ahead and drag that one down. Actually, drag all three of these down. What just happened? Undo, undo. There we go. You know what? We'll go copy, paste. All right. So now our fixed expenses we are going to pick up as before. That's that $1,500, and then right we have our total contribution margin of $2,400. We have our fixed expenses of $1,500, so we're going to have an operating income of $9, and once again, okay, 12. It's going to give us a $900 contribution margin. I'm sorry, operating income. Now, to the part that's going to maybe be confusing for you. Okay, weighted average, our average contribution margin. So if we look, right, our contribution margin per unit of Launch It is $6, and our contribution margin per unit of Treat Time is $12. So the average of 6 and 12 is 9, right? You just add them up and divide by 2. That doesn't take into account that we're selling different quantities. So if you just do a straight average, you're going to wind up with sort of the wrong way of thinking about what, on average, given your sales mix, your products are contributing to your bottom line. It is necessary to do a weighted average where you take the sales mix, the fact that you're selling twice as many of these $6 items, right? So you're selling twice as many of these $6 contribution items as you are of the $12. So you want to weight that $6 more heavily in your calculation of the average. And as I said, there are a few different ways that you can physically go about making this calculation, right? But one of the ways that you can do it is what you do is you take the total contribution, which is here, right? So we've got $2,400 in contribution margin for this year's planned sales, and we divide that by the sales revenue, just like we did. So when you have a single product, you want to know what that contribution percentage. You take the contribution margin, you divide it by the sales price. When you've got multiple products, you take the total contribution margin expected that you're going to be expecting to get from your sales mix, and you divide it by the total sales. So our contribution margin overall is going to be this $2,400, and we divide that by our total sales revenue, and it's going to give us 48%, right? So we have a 60% contribution margin percentage for the Launch It. We have a 40% contribution margin percentage for the Treat Time, but based on our sales mix and our pricing that we're getting, Our average contribution margin, our weighted average contribution margin is 48%.